In the small town of Ravens Hollow, everyone knew everyone else. Nestled among old oaks and serene lakes, it was the epitome of serenity. But beneath the tranquility, secrets brewed. David had always been a quiet, introverted man. From his small window in the attic of his inherited home, he watched the world go by. One day, his gaze settled upon Lila, a woman of striking beauty and mystery who had recently moved to a nearby house. David became inexplicably drawn to her, watching her daily routines and imagining conversations they might have. His obsession grew deeper, reaching a point where he planted hidden cameras in her home. Through them, he witnessed Lila inviting friends over, and after evenings of laughter and wine, they'd never leave. One by one, they vanished, leaving Lila as the common denominator. David's obsession morphed into a protective compulsion. He believed he was the only one who knew Lila's secret and that she committed these crimes as a twisted sign of love for him. The idea that she was clearing a path to be with him consumed his thoughts. One evening, he mustered the courage to confront her. As he entered her home, the scent of freshly turned earth hit his nostrils. The walls were adorned with old portraits, each bearing a small plaque with a name, the same names as her missing friends. Lila, surprised by David's entrance, confessed that she did indeed take her friends' lives. But not for him. She had been practicing an ancient ritual to maintain her ageless beauty. She needed souls, and her friends, she felt, were small prices to pay. David, torn between his obsessive love and the horror of her actions, decided to protect Lila from any future suspicions. He began to stage elaborate accidents and alibis to ensure that she was never linked to the disappearances. The two formed an unspoken pact. Lila continued her dark rituals, and David continued covering for her, his love blinding him from the gravity of her actions. But as the years passed and the town's population dwindled, suspicions arose. David and Lila became the center of whispers and watchful eyes. Fearing exposure, the duo made a pact to flee Ravens Hollow together. However, Lila had one last ritual to perform. David awoke, bound and gagged in Lila's basement. He realized, with sinking dread, that he was her final sacrifice. As Lila approached him with an ornate dagger, she whispered, "You always watched over me, and now you'll watch over me forever." And with that, David became the last soul to fuel Lila's undying beauty. The house in Ravens Hollow remained abandoned, a silent testament to the dark obsessions that once thrived within. The small town of Harper's Edge was surrounded by vast stretches of farmland, with cornfields that reached as far as the eye could see. The locals often joked that the cornfields were so expansive one could easily get lost and never be found. But such jests took a darker turn when the corn reached its full height and stories about the whispers began. Jenna, a college student home for the summer, had always found the tales to be nothing more than old wives' tales, intended to keep curious children from wandering too deep into the fields. One evening, as she was returning from a friend's house, Jenna decided to take a shortcut through one of the cornfields, despite the sun dipping dangerously low. As she ventured deeper into the maze of towering stalks, Jenna couldn't help but feel a tingling sensation at the back of her neck. She attributed it to her own nerves and the stories she'd heard growing up. Yet, as she continued, she began to hear soft, faint whispers, like multiple voices speaking just out of earshot. "Turn back. You shouldn't be here." Growing increasingly uneasy, Jenna picked up her pace, trying to shake off the sense of being watched. The whispers became more persistent, clearer, and seemed to come from every direction. Suddenly, a chilling breeze swept through, causing the cornstalks to sway violently. Jenna could now discern figures moving between the stalks, shadowy silhouettes that darted in and out of view. Panic gripped her as she realized she was no longer alone. From the corner of her eye, Jenna caught sight of an old scarecrow, its ragged clothes fluttering, and its empty eyes seeming to follow her every move. As she approached, the scarecrow's head tilted, its straw-filled hand pointing to a clear path out of the field. Without thinking, Jenna sprinted in the direction the scarecrow pointed. The whispers grew louder, almost deafening, but she didn't dare look back. After what felt like hours, she finally emerged from the cornfield, gasping for breath. Back in the safety of her home, Jenna tried to make sense of her eerie encounter. Her grandmother, sensing her distress, sat her down and shared a story. Decades ago, the town had been plagued by a series of mysterious disappearances, all linked to the cornfields. It was said that the lost souls of those who never returned still roamed the fields, trying to lead astray anyone who ventured in. The next day, Jenna revisited the cornfield in daylight, drawn by a morbid curiosity. She found the scarecrow, standing sentinel in the midst of the corn, its empty eyes staring ahead. Tied to its post was a faded photograph of a young man and a note that read, "May he who guards the lost find his own way home." Shaken, Jenna realized the scarecrow might have been the town's silent protector, guiding lost souls out of the perilous grip of the whispers. From that day on, Jenna never took the tales of Harper's Edge lightly, and she made sure to give a wide berth to the whispering cornfields and their guardian scarecrow.